Bags under my eyes today.
And we are now live.
Hi, everybody. We're so glad that you're joining us tonight. I am Deb Cuban, Superintendent of Ukiah Unified School District, and we're here at our first town hall meeting of the year to talk to you about what the school year is going to look like this year. I'll just say that we are so excited to be welcoming our kids back to school in person. It has been a long time coming, and we cannot wait to see their beautiful faces next week. And so we just wanted to talk through what it's going to look like. And we have some lovely, wonderful special guests here tonight with us to answer questions that may come up later in the program. So we have Katie Summer, our Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services, and we have Principal Dana Milani, who is the principal of Ukiah Elementary School. We have Ian Scott, who's one of our amazing tech people who just did so much work, always does a lot of work, but especially during this pandemic. A huge shout out to our tech team. Thank you so much. And then our communications officer, Doug Schald. We also have joining us a little bit later is Ukiah High School Principal Gordon Oslin. He is at a parent meeting right now, so he will be joining us shortly. So with that, I would like to share my screen with you and just talk through some of the pieces that are a little bit different during the school year. I wanted to encourage you to email your questions that you might have during the program to townhallquestions@uusd.net, and I will share that with you so you can write it down. We will answer as many of those questions as we possibly can within the time period. We also have a town hall in Spanish starting at 6:30. So we need to make sure that our town hall in English is completed by then. So welcome, and we cannot wait to welcome your kids back on Thursday. So I'm going to take a moment and share my screen. Okay, there we go. I'm going to move everybody down here. So as I said, if you have any questions, please email them to townhallquestions@uusd.net. And you can also find this presentation at www.uusd.net as well. So here we go. To start, I just wanted to share a few photos with you from this summer. We were really privileged this summer and honored to have your kids in our summer programs. And that included 6 weeks of a morning academic summer school program, followed by an afternoon of recreation that was supported in partnership with the city of Ukiah and the safari program. We had about 50 teenagers who were hired to be your kiddos' camp counselors, which was a lot of fun. And then we also partnered with Space to be able to allow our students to participate in space camps this summer. So we were really fortunate to be able to provide that to our community this summer. And here are just a few pictures of our students in action. So we start school next Thursday, August 19th. And again, we're super excited to welcome your students back for a safe, with full days of in-person instruction for the 21-22 school year. So our schedule will resemble what it was like pre-pandemic. So each individual school site has their schedule, but we are looking forward to a school day that better resembles what our students experienced before the pandemic. The California Department of Public Health recently released new guidelines for K-12 schools. Ukiah Unified is required to follow and enforce these guidelines, and we appreciate our community helping us continue to offer a safe and healthy learning environment for our students and staff. With these guidelines, there's a new mask guideline. It's a requirement. So while indoors on school transportation, students will be required to wear a face mask unless exempted under the CDPH face mask guidelines. Students and staff will not be required to wear masks outdoors, including during physical education activities. And regardless of vaccination status, all adults will be required to wear a face mask indoors under the current local health order unless they're alone in a room. Also, we will be operating with traditional schedules, including lunch and recess periods. Students will have the opportunity to participate in performing arts and athletics. And unfortunately, we are still not ready to allow visitors back in our school sites. We will be allowing them on a very limited basis. And we want to make sure that those visitors are wearing a face mask while indoors as well. So that's a little bit different, not different from last year, but different than pre-pandemic. There are no physical distancing guidelines anymore, so staff and students will learn in an environment free of social distancing, which allows for group work and peer collaboration, and masks will allow us to do that. We ask that you please screen your students at home for COVID-19 symptoms such as cough, shortness of breath, runny nose, and a fever at home before they come to school or get on a bus. Anyone with a fever of 100.4 or more should not go to a school site. So please make sure that you are screening your students at home before they come to school. If a student develops a fever while at school, we will isolate that student from other students and we'll ask that you come pick up your student. And sick students and staff will be advised to isolate according to the California Department of Public Health and Cal OSHA guidelines. There are some new quarantining procedures that we're going to talk about in a little bit that are a little bit different from last year. It is our intention to keep kids in school as much as possible, as long as everybody is healthy. So the state is committed to that, and we are certainly committed to that as well. Sorry, my phone is ringing. I'm going to get rid of that or else it will keep ringing. So after isolation, a student may return 10 days after the symptom first appeared and no fever for the last 24 hours without using a fever reducing medication or a proof of a negative COVID test. And I'll talk about testing in just a minute. We, of course, want to continue to emphasize hand hygiene. It's always important, but it's now more important than ever. So we will continue to emphasize hand hygiene. I won't talk in too much detail about that because I know you've all seen that before. We will also be offering COVID testing as we have. The Ukiah Unified has administered over 14,000 COVID tests since last February. And I want to thank our staff for leaning into that and helping us keep our staff and our students safe. So we've had approximately 60 of our staff members trained to administer the COVID test, and we will continue doing that. So it is free, continues to be free. COVID testing is free for our students. It is voluntary for students. But we strongly recommend testing for unvaccinated students at least once a week. We will be sending out information next week for you to be able to re-sign up in our system for COVID testing. And even though you registered last year, you have to register again this year. So we will be sending out information on that. Unvaccinated staff members will be required to COVID test twice weekly, and vaccinated staff members are encouraged to continue with regular COVID testing. Athletes are required to test for COVID-19. So if a student is participating on one of our sports teams, they will need to test for COVID if they are unvaccinated. So for outdoor sports athletes, they would test weekly, and indoor sports athletes would test twice weekly. And to clarify, it doesn't say this on here, but if a student is vaccinated, they are not required to test. They can test if they'd like to, but they are not required. The California Department of Public Health requires everyone to sign a new consent form. So I talked about that. And if you need more details about testing, we will be sending something out, but your child's school will also be communicating with you about testing. So that, and again, we've really appreciated being able to help our families in the area of testing. I know throughout this school year, families have grown concerned about exposure to COVID, and we are able to easily test. And these are the rapid 15-minute antigen tests. Okay, so ventilation at schools, this always comes up. And so we just want you to know that our ventilation systems are currently monitored for proper operation. We use filters that are above the industry standard at all of our school sites and the district service center. All heating, ventilation, and air conditioning have MERV 11 or higher filters, and they're replaced on a scheduled cycle. Classrooms and offices are to have the windows and doors open to allow airflow. And then all classrooms and work areas serving more than one individual have been equipped with low noise HEPA air filters with a large enough capacity and flow rate for the square footage of the room. So we're very excited about that. And we appreciate our maintenance crew and operations crew for all the work they've done in this area to make sure that our ventilation systems are up to date. We are offering independent study as an alternative for students. So we have expanded our independent study opportunities. So families who choose independent study rather than in-person learning will be offered enrollment at Ukiah Independent Study Academy. And if you have not let us know that you're planning to do that, if you could do so, that would be really great. You will contact your child's school to get that process started. That is really important for you to do so that we can ensure that we have the right staffing in the right places. I want to tell you that independent study is not the same as distance learning. So last year, your students received distance learning with daily instruction, and independent study is not the same as that. So, and then if you are choosing that, you would transfer your school to Ukiah Independent Study Academy. Different in independent study for next year, as per the law, is that transitional kindergarten through third grade students, they will have a required weekly meeting and be provided opportunities for synchronous instruction. And it's defined down there. It's classroom style instruction or small group or one-on-one, delivered by the internet or the phone, and it involves two-way communication. For grades 4 through 8, students will be provided for both daily live interaction and be required to attend 1 hour of weekly synchronous instruction. And you can see the definitions at the bottom of the PowerPoint. For grades 9 through 12, students will be required to attend 1 hour of weekly synchronous instruction. That's a more traditional independent study program. And again, please contact your child's school for questions or to set up a conference to discuss independent study. We actually are expanding our after school programs, which is really exciting. We have a large demand for our after school programs, so we will be expanding those this fall. I'm happy to report that we are offering our after school program and we are supplementing it. We will be supplementing it in a partnership with the city of Ukiah for the Safari program, which will be on campuses. We're also partnering again with Space to offer students an opportunity to participate in Space. And then we are partnering with the Boys and Girls Club. So if you want to participate in our ACES program for next year, this year, that would be next Thursday. I keep forgetting that school is starting next Thursday. Please fill out an application on our website and return it to the office of your child's school. As always, we are here for you both academically and for social emotional support. So if your child is having difficulties, please reach out for help. We have access to a lot of services and support, and we are here to help your student. You can call your child's school or email their counselor for support. And you can also go to our website. We have a tab called Social Emotional Support and Mental Health Resources. And you can find a list of school counselors with contact information, crisis hotline numbers, and also local resources. Thank you so much to our counseling team for everything that they have done over the last year and a half for our students as well. We will continue to offer free breakfast and lunch next year to every student. So we're excited to do that. And I want to I am so grateful to our food service staff for everything they have done for the last 15 months with our weekly food distribution. Weekly food distribution will stop, but we will be offering free lunch and breakfast and free supper for students who participate in the ACES after school program. Communication. So communication is really important in our school district, and we have worked really hard to improve our communication over the last several years. You will continue to receive my communications. Last year, I communicated out weekly. We will communicate bi-monthly, so twice a month, through phone, email, text, whatever your preference is, or you can get all three of those. So you can go into the Aries Parent Portal, which is now available to go online and update your information, and you can sign up there or change your preferences. So if you only want to get text messages, you can click on that in the Aries Parent Portal. And again, if you want all three, we've got you covered. Always visit our website at www.uusd.net. On our site, we have our health and safety plans. We have our independent study details. We have ACEs information. And then we also have a COVID response website with all of our COVID resources there. Please follow us on our Facebook page. And I know many of our school sites also have Facebook pages. So please look for those and like your school site's Facebook page, but also please go to our district Facebook page. We do a lot of communication through our Facebook page. So we are here to have very open and transparent communication, and that's why we're doing this town hall tonight and why we do everything else in terms of communication. So that is all for my presentation, but we have a lot of questions that have come in. So I will stop sharing my screen. I want to thank you so much for all that you have done over the last year and a half. I'm a parent of 3 kids, and I know how challenging it has been. I've personally experienced that as well. And I just want you to know how excited we are to welcome your students back to school. I get super excited when I see our kids in person and our staff, and I can't wait to see their smiling faces next Thursday. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so we can have our communications officer ask us questions that have come in. Remember to ask a question. You can go to you can email in a question. It's not right here, but townhallquestions@uusd.net. And then you can find this presentation at www.uusd.net. So I will stop sharing and we will roll through the questions.
All right, good evening. Superintendent Cuban, we've had a lot of questions come in about masks and many of the details that surround the guidance. Can you review that for folks really quick?
Yes, we are requiring all people who come onto our campuses or in our school activities to wear a mask indoors. And so that is a requirement. That is not a requirement that our school board has made. It's not a UUSD made rule. We fall under the California Department of Public Health guidelines and our local public health orders. And so that is definitely a guideline and an order that we have to implement the mask mandate. Outdoors, people may remove their masks.
Okay, Principal Milani, will there be a kindergarten orientation this year? And will parents be able to see classrooms at that time?
Good evening. Yes, Ukiah Elementary is actually going to be this Friday, the 13th. We've communicated this to all of our kindergarten families. I do know that every school site is somewhat different, so please make sure you contact your specific school site to get their detailed information. And we are going to allow parents to come into the classroom. We're going to do our presentation outside, but we're going to make sure that parents and children get to come in together to see their classroom prior to school beginning.
Okay, Assistant Superintendent Summers, will temperature checks be completed at the start of school, or will there be screening questions that need to be completed at home?
Good evening. So this year, we will not be doing temperature checks when students arrive on campus, but like last year, we're asking that all students and staff do a self-screening for COVID-19 and look for symptoms such as cough, shortness of breath, runny nose, and fever. And if they have any of those, that they stay home. And anyone with a fever of 100 0.4 degrees Fahrenheit or more should not go to school that day. So we are asking that everybody please, before they get on the bus, before they go to school, that they walk through and self-screen.
Okay, Superintendent Cuban, when will teacher assignments be made and communicated? And will all of the class sizes be the same?
Yes, class sizes are the same as they were pre-pandemic. Our ratio is 24:1 in grades TK through 2, 28:1 in grades 3 through 5. I'm giving this off the top of my head. Middle school is 31:1 and high school is 34:1. Those are our ratios. Our class sizes might vary within that. They might be smaller, but those are our contract class sizes. I know that at Ukiah High School on Friday, students can look their schedules up in Aries. So if you go to the parent portal and you complete that, you can see your student's schedule. Each school site has a different rollout for their schedules, and they should be communicating with you. I know some of them have already communicated about when people can see their child's teacher assignment, but schools that comes from the school sites, and they do have different dates.
All right, Superintendent Cuban, again, which individuals or committees monitor changing COVID protocols and make student health decisions?
Our health decisions are based on the California Department of Public Health guidance and the and local public health orders. So that's what we base our decisions on. And as those change, as they have over the last 15 months, we review those and we integrate them into our safety plan. So there's a team of district individuals who are looking at that. The new guidelines from the California Department of Public Health are really clear. And so they are, I need to silence my phone. I'm so sorry. I think I'm getting all those calls about the evacuation warnings that are happening on my phone. So I apologize about that. So that is what drives our work around these safety plans. We have sent them out to our draft COVID safety plan out to our staff. We shared it at the last board meeting, and we've shared a link to the materials to our parents as well.
All right, great. Assistant Superintendent Summers, will there be snacks and lunch this year? You know, how will they be served, and what will lunch protocols be during that time?
So this year, we're excited to be able to offer breakfast, lunch, and supper to our students in the after-school program. Students will be supervised during snack breaks and lunch. Students will eat either outdoors or indoors, depending on the campus and their schedule. So if you have would like specifics on what the lunch schedules will look like, you can contact your child's school for that.
Okay, great. Superintendent Cuban, will social distancing be reinstated, or will we be staying with no social distancing policy this year?
I do not have a crystal ball. So I cannot necessarily predict that, but currently the social distancing guidelines are removed, and the mask mandate stays. So I don't know what is going to happen in the future, but that is our current guideline.
Great. Assistant Superintendent Summer, is a school allowed to implement a stricter policy than the district requires?
So for some things, things like schools are allowed to have additional safety measures like additional signage, markings, required pickup and drop-off zones. And they may have any requirements due to outbreaks or requirements from public health that are different than the rest of the district. They cannot have stricter policies regarding things like when to quarantine. Those we follow California Department of Public Health and our local health officer orders. So, but you may see at some schools different signage or different pickup drop-off zones.
Great. So Principal Milani, will there be an ACES program this year? And if so, what will the pickup rules be?
So there is going to be an ACES program. Superintendent Cuban did discuss some of the things that go along with that. So if you could visit uusd.net to fill out the application, and then make sure you turn it into your child's school of attendance, that would be great.
Okay, Superintendent Cuban, will students in quarantine be enrolled in distance learning?
No, distance learning is no longer allowed under the state laws, but when students are in quarantine, we will put them on short-term independent study so that they are given assignments and work to do while they're in quarantine, if they're healthy enough to do the work. But that is how we will approach any students who are in quarantine. But again, distance learning is no longer allowed in the system.
All right, Principal Milani, can shields be substituted for masks? Can you use a shield instead of a mask?
Well, generally no, because the guidelines do call for masks. But if we have any students or staff who have any medical reasons, we can use a shield with a drape. But please make sure you contact your school if you need any further information or help with that.
Okay, Superintendent Cuban, will there be barriers between students when they are in class?
There will not be barriers. Plexiglass is no longer recommended. And so the masks are the barriers.
Okay. Principal Osland, can you tell us a little bit about what sports are going to look like this fall?
You're muted.
Now I'm unmuted. Little rookie mistake. 16 months. You know, Doug, we're prepared to win each and every game all season long, and even beat Cardinal Newman. And I know they're tuned in tonight. So no, and apologies for being late. We have summer academy, and I was just with a group of parents. And prior to answering this question, what I'll say is super exciting to have our freshmen on campus and our athletes on campus right now, and to see their parents on campus. And it's been a long, long time to just do great things like that. And so welcoming them is super fun. So for sports, right now we're on the move and we're gearing up. And, you know, the frustrating part about with the athletics is that we know we're playing and we're continuing as we ended last spring. So we have our teams, we're practicing our fall sports, but the final guidelines as to the specifics have not been issued, and that includes the specifics regarding, you know, the fan participation and the fans being here. But we're online. The teams are doing tryouts, and we're working out right now. And you know, I think people just need to be patient and understand that there will be, there could be some changes and whatnot. We're doing the same thing we did last year, which is a lot of testing. Our athletes are probably the most tested people in the community. And so we feel that it's safe. We think it's an important part of their education, and they're having a great time doing it. And I appreciate all the coaches and the athletic director for all the work that they're doing. And Deb, I don't know if anybody else in here wants to chime in on the specifics, but that's really where we're at, is test and do it.
Yes, I'll just add a little bit just from today. We had expected the athletic participation guidelines to come out about 2 weeks ago. They still haven't come out. They're supposed to come out by the end of the week, but I did ask our public health officer if it would be safe to assume that we're going to apply the K-12 guidance for schools to athletics. And he indicated that is a good approach right now. So again, as Principal Osland said, that might change, but we plan to give our students every experience that we possibly can under the guidelines. And we have mirrored our testing and our masking with what is true of in-school session. So we will be, if we don't, I think we have an athletic competition next weekend. a scrimmage of some sort. So by then, we're going to have some answers on fans. So we will get back to everybody on that. But as usual, things are changing and we have to stay flexible and patient.
Yeah, and I think, my hope is that fans are permitted, and my other hope is that the fans, I mean, it's not a lot to ask to come and mask up at games and whatnot. And, the football games I was at last year, they did a fantastic job. And I would hope that people would just go along with that. And then, the other aspect is we did a really great campaign at the superintendent's, leadership there, a great vaccination campaign. And for our student athletes that are vaccinated, they actually just use their vaccine as a bypass on it. And I think it's important to note that if you're vaccinated, and I think you probably covered or will cover the students that are vaccinated, they're in class. If somebody does test positive, they're not missing games and classes. And that's a big deal. And that is a big shift from last year, because we were running into issues. If somebody were positive, they might miss contests. And that's really hard. When you're a senior athlete and it's your last 2 contests, that's a big deal. And so there are solutions to that. And I appreciate the leadership of the vaccination from the superintendent and moving ahead, and excited about the sports season.
I do want to add, since we're talking about sports, we'll talk about some new quarantining guidelines, but there is a modified quarantine that we will be implementing. But it does not apply to extracurriculars. So if there's a student who is, a close contact of somebody who has COVID and they were not wearing masks, and they were wearing masks, that student can, if they test negative and they're asymptomatic, they can actually come back to school, but they can't participate in extracurricular activities. So it's sort of a modified quarantine. It's a little confusing and we will all get used to it, but and it is all in our safety plan, but we will, the goal is to get kids back in school as much as possible if they've been exposed to COVID.
Okay, so if I misspoke, add it to the long list of everybody trying to figure out how to do a pandemic and hoping that we never do it again.
Yes, you didn't misspeak at all. I was just adding.
Okay,
Okay, Doug.
Right. Thank you. Gordon, since you were late, we're going to give you 2 in a row. If our numbers keep increasing locally, is there a chance that we will offer distance learning?
No, the current plan is that we're charging ahead with this year. And I think that, we can't predict the future and all that. And my understanding is that we're dialed in, we're ready to go, and that's where we're headed. And if this is like a pop quiz, I feel like the kid that got to class late, and I hope I answered it wrong. Right now, my boss is looking at me and he'll correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I can get my magic 8-ball if you'd like. But no, we are not authorized to offer distance learning. And I don't know if that will change, but independent study is what is offered, but not distance learning.
Great. I have a follow-up question about sports here that came in. Will the general public be allowed at sporting events?
Well, that's the part that I said is yet to be determined. And last year, we had families, and, 4, I think we went to 6 at that point. And right now we have no guidance on that. And my hope, and in looking what else is happening out there, that the outdoor events specifically, we should be able to host more than that. But it's not about us, it's about what we're told to do. But certainly our goal is to have the families and the friends there, and hopefully as many fans as we can get there. But we're going to follow the rules that are presented to us.
Great, thank you. Assistant Superintendent Summer, in class, if there are kids that want to take a break and breathe for a bit, and pull their mask off, how is this handled? And basically, can kids take a break from wearing their mask indoors?
So currently, everybody, including students and staff, when they are indoors, they have to wear masks. So even if they need a break, they need to take that break outside. So students will be able to have breaks outside. Teachers can bring their students out to take a little mask break if they need it. Students that are in secondary will have passing periods. But currently, when students and staff are inside, we all need to keep our masks on.
Okay, thank you. Superintendent Cuban, can you clarify the science behind the safety protocols for students and staff this year? What is the scientific reasoning behind these protocols?
So I am not a scientist. I am not a medical doctor, and we rely on the scientists and the medical doctors from the California Department of Public Health to make our decisions. So you can go to the CDC website to find those studies, but I would not want to speak to them during this session.
Okay, thank you. Principal Milani, what's the plan for kids being outside, playing together and being close?
Very excited about having them playing outside. They won't be wearing a mask outside. They'll get to play. And at this point, there's no social distancing guidelines. So, but as always, even prior to the pandemic, we were always trying to stress to littles the importance of having their own bubble and their own space. And we'll continue to do that now too.
Thank you. Assistant Superintendent Summer, will students be tested without parental consent?
So for students who are under 12 years of age, they must have consent from their parents. Students who are over 12 years can consent for that. They don't need parent consent and they can ask to be tested.
Okay, thank you.
But Doug, I will add that we always want to try and get parental consent, and you will be sent information home to be able to sign up for testing. And that is definitely always our first approach.
Okay, great. And Superintendent Cuban, given the governor's announcement today about vaccine mandates for teachers and staff, what is the time frame for ensuring that all adults on campus are vaccinated?
We currently cannot require the vaccination for our staff. However, beginning next week, and we'll wait for more guidance from legal counsel on that, but beginning next week, we will be implementing a program where we will be testing our unvaccinated staff twice weekly. So either, our staff is either vaccinated or they're getting regular COVID testing.
Thank you. Assistant Superintendent Summer, please explain the quarantine policy for those who have direct contact with a family member whom has tested positive.
So we will be following the guidelines that are part of the California Department of Public Health, and what Superintendent Cuban is holding up is our framework for that. So we have a quick and easy way because it's a little bit more complicated this year. If an unvaccinated student is in close contact and was not wearing a mask at home, most likely we're not wearing our masks, and they don't have symptoms, they will have to quarantine. It's a little bit different of a quarantine than last year. They can end it after day 10 without being tested, or the quarantine can end after day 7 if they've tested at day 5 from the last exposure and they're negative. So that's a little bit of a modified quarantine. And then students that are vaccinated, they currently do not need to quarantine unless they have symptoms. Also, all families should follow whatever guidance that they're getting from their local public health department in regards to quarantine.
Okay, I've had several questions come in here recently, so maybe Superintendent Cuban, folks are asking, what are the criteria for when maybe an entire classroom closes, or when the school closes, or when the district closes?
So we got clarification from public health on that today. We will take direction from public health. We work very closely with public health already on any positive cases that we've seen in our schools. And public health would be the one to let us know when it would be necessary to shut a classroom down or close an entire school.
Okay, thank you. We're getting close to the end of the questions. Another one came in. They're asking if we're going to furnish masks for students.
So we do, we're asking that families send their students to school with a mask. We certainly have extra masks around though as well.
Okay, that is all of the questions I have right now.
Okay, great. And as always, to our awesome family members, if you have other questions, please make sure that you email us. We will get back to you. And again, we are so excited to welcome our kids back to our schools on Thursday. We cannot wait to see them. We'll wave to you in your cars. And we just appreciate your support so much. And we can't wait to get the kids back. All right, everybody have a great night, and we will see you on Thursday.